nerdy, unqualified, and indistinguishable from rambling. Welcome back to the A&D Show.
I can't believe people actually listen to this show.
Man, they are not ready for this.
My opinion's always correct, but you're allowed to be wrong.
All right. I agree. Hello, and welcome back to the A&D Show. I'm David.
I'm Austin.
We've got a doozy of a chat to chat with you about today. We're going to talk a little bit about the future. Not the future of this show, not the future of our lives, but the future we were promised, and the future that has yet not been fully delivered.
It's all lies.
But before we get there, this just in. The future you is asking the past you to stop being such a prude and like and follow the show already. So I don't know about you, Austin, but I'm going to listen to future me, and I'm going to like and follow the show.
I already do, actually. I'm already ahead of the game.
Maybe this is the future us telling the past us.
That's true.
You know how timey-wimey things can get a little funky sometimes.
Yeah, I forget stuff, so I get it.
Yeah, I think I've forgotten more than some people may ever know.
It's true. It's very accurate.
Oh, man. So here's the deal. What were we promised in our youths that the future would be like? What did we think it would be like? And, in what continuous ways has the future just... I'm sure there have been... I think you would agree, Austin. I think most of our audience, listening audience or watching audience would agree that there are some pop culture things that have been very accurately predictive of the future, and those don't need to be... What is going on with my camera right now? Why do I... There we go. Lock in on that focus. Anyway, I'm just gonna hold on a second. I'm gonna go and
like live recordings.
I'm just gonna go turn off the autofocus on my camera. That's what
be smart.
Anyway, there have been plenty of things that pop culture and media have predicted accurately, but there have been plenty of things that have been promised and have not been proven.
Mm-hmm.
And let's talk about those a little bit. So tell me, Austin, what was it, if you could narrow it down to like one or two things off the top of your head, what would you say has been the one thing or the two things that you've been promised that haven't come through yet?
Well, number one, obviously, is from The Fifth Element. We were promised vending machines that came out in pill form, and you put it in the microwave, and then you had like a cheeseburger. And this was a promise to us.
That's been promised multiple times because they did the same thing in Back to the Future with the pizza.
Yeah. So this is a little bit disheartening.
Tell me about it.
And then I think about every single futuristic movie or show. You got flying cars, but then I realize that people can't drive properly on roads. So I don't know that I want to give them the space as well,
right?
To drive, but flying cars and these robot butlers. It just where's it at? Right.
Was it called the Bicentennial Man or something?
Bicentennial Man with was that Robin Williams in that one?
Yeah, Robin Williams. The future that they showed of these, robotic butlers and whatever. There was another one called there was a TV show called Synthetics or something like that. That was all about the dynamic of robotic butlers and housemaids and stuff, and then becoming self-aware. Isaac Asimov, not to get too brainy, but Isaac Asimov wrote a book called Do Robots Dream of Electric Sheep? I think is what the title of the book is called. And it's all about the interesting paradigm of man creating technology that out races human intellect and becomes self-aware. Yeah.
Not to cut you off, did we discuss the AI like defense program that was tested in a simulation?
Yes, we did. We did. We
Where
did.
basically it was very, very aggressive, and it
Yes.
basically had nuclear holocaust like very quickly.
Yeah. Like it was like it almost always defaulted to the annihilation of mankind.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
which kind of blows my mind.
Right.
I think about stuff like Time Cop and Minority Report, where you had these like future cops or whatever that they could figure out crime before they happen, stuff like that. It blows my mind that these things are still not real.
Now, it's funny that you mentioned Minority Report because that was one that popped into my head when we were talking about this as our topic for tonight. And I bring that back up because that's an interesting kind of it's an interesting kind of mishmash of
Mhm.
some of the pop culture predictions of the future of technology, the future of humanity, and then kind of filled with this kind of um the current mindset of mankind or whatever. And the message I think that they were trying to get at is that no matter how technologically advanced mankind goes into the future, that there's always going to be this innate desire to manipulate the divergent, if you will, for the betterment of mankind. And that's what happens is the whole pre-crime division that Tom Cruise and all of his cojones, that's not the right word,
Cohorts.
cohorts, cronies, that's the word I was, not cojones.
Okay.
Oh my God. Anyway, Tom Cruise and all his cohorts, they kind of go around and they solve crime before it happens or whatever, but it's all hinging upon these three. There's two brothers that are twin brothers, and then their sister that's a little bit younger than them, and they have some sort of precognitive abilities that they are put into this, like essentially this isolation chamber, isolation tank, and they are put into these. They have these like sensors that are put onto their heads, and these three people, these three siblings, they have this precognition about the future, and the technology of the day is just bent around manipulating their natural abilities
Mhm.
to create this, ambivalent, beneficial pre-crime to stop crime before it happens and all this other stuff. And it's interesting. It's a really interesting film, a lot of interesting messages and stuff in there. But I was thinking about that one because I'm like, okay, this is a movie that made some pretty significant claims about what the future of technology is going to be, and some of them have come true. I loved how Tom Cruise had the little thumb and finger gloves that he was like manipulating,
Right.
and this was like what, like 2009.
Yeah, it was
So this
early.
was this was early in the days of touchscreen
No,
phones.
I mean that was probably before multi-touch phone screens. I would have to
Right.
guess. Probably
Well,
single touch.
I think iPhone had come out in '07. So it was maybe a couple years after the onset of full screen touch phones, but it was like long before like gestures and things like that, and so they really predicted that well. Um, and all of the cool futuristic cars that, of course, none of which have even the automotive manufacturers have never even caught up to that yet.
But
But
even that, like futuristic cars, like every single like Detroit Auto Show, you see these cool like future concept cars that never happen, and they
right,
always look awesome. And it's always like, huh, that was a joke. It's like, no,
right,
this is killer. Like this is awesome.
it's just painted clay, like they just
Yeah,
sculpted.
it's
It's
like this
just a
is so dumb.
sculpture. It's not even functional.
Like I want this.
I will
But then,
say,
then you get cars like the Thunderbird that Ford came out with for a while, like the
oh,
revamp that they used like in Bond. The thing was so ugly, or like
yeah.
the Pontiac Solstice. It's like, what
Yeah.
are we doing? Like, what are we doing? Like, these are
Well,
gross.
now Pontiac is completely defunct as automobile manufacturer.
Yeah.
I will say the one automobile manufacturer, and they're fairly polarizing, I think, and maybe so with our audience as well. But they're a fairly polarizing company because of their owner. But the one company that actually has predicted and pushed for creating and making available publicly these futuristic vehicles is Tesla.
Mhm.
I mean, say what you want about the Cybertruck. You might love it, you might hate it. It's a very polarizing topic, but it is the only concept car that has ever gone from a concept to a publicly drivable, roadworthy vehicle, and it looks the same as it did in the concept.
Do
Most
you
other cars go through so many iterations, and then they eventually come out to whatever garbage they put out with.
do you remember? It was probably 7 years ago. You and I were on a trip. We were in Indianapolis, and we went there. There was like a Tesla showroom
I
in the
do
Circle
remember.
Center Mall in Indianapolis before Tesla went big. And I
Yes.
remember you and I were looking at these cars, so like just the infotainment center was like just so different than what anybody else had. I'm like, this could actually work. Like we talked about
Yeah.
this in the car on the way home. We're like this could be something that actually works. And they just blew up.
I do remember that. I also remember, I think the one thing that I remember most from that is they fixed with like relative ease, they fixed the one problem that plagues every taller than average driver in the world, and that is the height of freaking windshields. And because like most of the time, even in my pickup truck, I have an F-150, a 2010 F-150. I love that truck, and it sits nice and high. I'm comfortable. I can see everything. I got plenty of room, but even its windshield comes down to about my eye level. And so if I
Right.
have the visor down at all I can see is the end of my hood.
Right.
The slouch. And they fixed that problem by the simple fix of making the windshield curve back over the driver
Yeah.
and passenger by, I don't know what, like 7 or 8 inches.
Yeah.
And that one simple fix was like, okay, I'm on board. I want one.
Yeah. Yeah. We did want one. We wanted one bad. We sat in them, and they're like, this is incredible.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
That was a
I was
crazy.
I was a sucker for the white leather interior. I'm like, that's killer. Like,
Yeah.
that's
Well,
awesome.
the supple white leather and the way that it hugged your buns,
Yeah.
it was a beautiful thing. And the weird falcon wing doors, that was so cool.
Yeah.
But that's probably the only instance that I can think of. I mean, there have been a few car manufacturers in the past that have been, Toyota pushed some envelopes a few times, but really nothing to the degree of Tesla. The way that they've just really leaned into that future vision and tried to make it happen. I don't know though, if we're talking about flying cars specifically, we've got shows that go all the way back to the 60s, cartoon shows like the Jetsons that predicted that we would have flying cars, in the future. Back to the Future did the same thing with the DeLorean and all the vehicles in that. I think it was the second one. The upside down floating inversion platform and the self-tying shoes and the clothing that adjusts, that tailors itself to the wearer, that kind of stuff. And I've seen some of this technology come to fruition, but I don't think one of the things I don't think that we are even close to is the flying cars. The technology, I think we could get pretty close with drones the way that they are, and quadcopters and omnicopters and things like that. I think that we're close technologically to a place that we could probably crank something out. And I know there are several out there that are endeavoring to do this, but I don't think that we're in a place that I just don't think that's going to happen. I think you're muted, by the way. The first accidental
I hate it. I hate it because like I do this in meetings all the time, and I always forget that I'm on mute. Like, and I'm that old like boomer. It's like, oh, you're on mute. I'm like, I feel like an idiot. I don't know the role that we'll see in our lifetime. Honestly, like I don't know
Yeah.
that technology. But I mean, I don't think that we'll see a lot of the things that we thought we'd see in the '90s in our lifetime either. I
Yeah.
don't think that we're ever going to see. I mean, I guess the one thing that we are seeing is from Johnny Mnemonic, where all the corporations ran the world. I mean,
Right.
we're seeing that, so that's true. That happened. So good
And
job on that one.
that's been predicted by like every science fiction writer
Yeah,
ever.
yeah.
I mean,
So that
Philip K. Dick also inspired. If you're not aware of who Philip K. Dick is, he's not. Yeah. Philip K. Dick
he did Law and
also.
Order.
I'm not. I'm
That's
I'm
Dick
thinking
Moore.
of. I'm thinking of. Sorry, Isaac Asimov. We also mentioned Isaac Asimov earlier. He inspired movies like that predicted technological advancements, like I, Robot with Will Smith. But he also, his books, his fictional works were also things that created other film franchises like the Blade Runner series.
Right.
Things like that. And those are super incredibly predictive. And I think the one thing that they all, including you know, things like Seinfeld and
Simpsons always predicting the
The
future too.
Simpsons, not Seinfeld, sorry, Simpsons, and what was the one I was thinking of? Oh, Back to the Future. Including Back to the Future, they all were predictive of things like uh, corporate uh, corporate manipulation and control of political
Right.
economy, which is definitely the case.
What was the movie that was like predicting Civil War in the 2000s? What movie was
I think
that? Was
there's a
that
movie called Civil War that is predicting
well, that's
Civil
coming
War
out.
that's coming
That's
out.
coming
Yeah,
out, but it was of like this like dystopian future. It was a civil. I don't remember what the movie was. I mean, that's for some reason I feel like people just don't talk anymore, and all they want to do is argue. So we're on the verge of that one too.
yeah, I don't know.
But I feel like for me, it was always just like this world where things were going to be so technologically advanced that like everything was simple to do. Everything was catered to you. You had again the robot butlers. You had is that my cat? My God, my goodness,
I can hear it in the background. He's
I'm
cracking
so
me up.
sorry. Um, I just bet her, and she's always hungry. She's constantly hungry. She's just a little fatty fat. So
No,
hold on, hold
I
on one
think
second.
you're
You go ahead.
yeah, I think if I were to kind of boil down some of the, because you're right, because like most of these predictive things have been pretty much exclusively the things that at least that I latched onto as a kid. They had nothing to do with the political economy. They had nothing to do with the, ecosystem and the planet's health and that, but things like space travel was
Hmm.
huge, right? Which we're kind of dabbling in. There's
Can I
talks of
can I just say
mission.
hard pass for that? Like we can't keep wheels on airplanes right now. You think I'm gonna
Right,
go in space?
right.
Absolutely not.
Right, but, like, intergalactic travel, going to the moon, setting up a base on the moon, going to Mars, like, these are all, like, pretty lofty, but some of them, we've dabbled in. They've sent a couple of rovers to Mars. I actually watched a video on, social media the other day that talked about back in the '70s or '80s that the Russian space program actually sent some probes to Jupiter. I think it was Jupiter. Is that the one with the rings?
It's Jupiter, Saturn, and Uranus actually.
Maybe it was
Venus
Saturn.
also. Venus have. I think there's 4 planets with rings, so you got to pick one.
Well, I think it was either Jupiter or Saturn. I can't remember which, but I think it was Jupiter because one of them was. No, it was Saturn. It was
I would,
Saturn.
I would think Jupiter because Jupiter's closer. Saturn's a lot further away. It's
Either
November.
way, they sent out and they had their own predictions about what the atmospheric pressure and what it would be like below because it was this gaseous planet, but it had a hard solid core. So it was like, what is going to be like below this gas layer and so on and so forth. But it was in the '70s and it took them
Right.
a decade, but they finally landed a probe on the planet and it actually sent back telemetric data to them. And it was pretty interesting that they actually got data back about this planet that is far and above anything that we could have actually ever gone to because it's so
Mhm.
far away. But space travel has been a big one. But I think the thing that we probably both latched onto most when it comes to future predictions is going to be in the realm of technology. And
Right.
we've talked about future tech on this show before many times. And listeners, if you want to hear our takes on some of the other future tech in the world, go back and listen to some archived episodes. They're available everywhere. On the podcast system, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, they're available on YouTube. Go check them out because we have some fairly polarizing opinions on some of those, even between the two of us.
Yeah.
But I think there's a couple that really stand out to me, that really stand out above at least one at the top of my head that I can think of. And then I'll mention three, two, two that are kind of really stand out, and the third one that is kind of an obscure reference from a movie that probably wasn't as popular or widely received, but still is pretty cool. So the first one, and I think the most obvious, is holograms.
Mm-hmm.
How many movies have we seen in our lives, or that have ever been made, even if we haven't seen them, that have featured some sort of holographic projection? They did it all throughout Star Wars. They've done it through Star Trek. They've done it on, most of the tentpole science fiction
Right.
platforms. Even some of the real basic ones that are like, I think even like Firefly, the Firefly series had
Yeah.
some holographic elements to it. And that was a fairly grounded sci-fi show. That's a big one. That's a really big one, and that's one that I think like everybody wants. Everybody wants.
Well, they did a hologram. I think of was it like Tupac at a concert or something like that, or the Biggie Smalls maybe at a concert? Like they did like a really terrifyingly accurate hologram of a rapper. It's like 3 years ago, and it still freaks me out because I don't like that technology is not like that's not for me. Like I don't know
Well,
that I like that.
I don't think that it's as. I don't think that it's even close to being what we saw, what we were
So you're
promised.
so you're so you're talking more about like FaceTime but with holograms, basically.
Yeah, yeah. Well, okay. Here's an example. I think Star Trek is probably the worst offender of the push for holographic technology, because Star Trek essentially promotes things like a holodeck or even holographic emitters inside of different rooms where holographic characters can freely roam the ship, and you wouldn't be able to tell them apart from actual real life people. Like you see holographic characters in things like Mass Effect or whatever, and they're typically, or even Star Wars, they're typically like these blue, glowy, transparent images that are obviously projected up from somewhere or down from somewhere. But Star Trek basically said that their technology in the 24th and a half century or whatever it was that they were at was so advanced that you wouldn't even see the light emitters pushing the technology,
Yeah.
and that it could get so advanced that you could physically interact with a holographic projection. For example, I just rewatched Star Trek First Contact the other day, and it's a fairly egregious example of abusing our hopes and dreams when it comes to technology. Because in one scene, Captain Picard is kind of echoing through the ship a passenger from 21st century Earth that's not aware that they're on a spaceship, and they go into a holodeck, and they're being pursued by the Borg. And he tells the holodeck computer, engage such and such book, such and such chapter, build the program, but remove all the safety protocols. And it builds this whole world. They walk into it. He picks up a Tommy gun, and he goes to proceed to shoot the people that are chasing them, the bad guys, the Borg. And the bullets actually had effect. And the girl that's the passenger from the past in that scenario, she asks him, she's like, I thought that this was just I thought these were just holograms. I thought these couldn't be dangerous. He's like, well, they can be dangerous if you disable the safety protocols. I don't think we were ever in a million years going to get to the place where holographic projections could be A, interacted with, and B, be detrimental to human safety in any way. Not even close.
No.
Um,
No, I agree.
so that's the first one. And I wish that it could be true, because I can't even tell you how many times I have daydreamed or even fantasized about going to a computer on a starship and typing in there Sherlock Holmes, such and such story, and living the story
Right.
first person, or anything like that. Just going and experiencing it's kind of like in you and I are both faith forward people, and we probably grew up listening to Adventures in Odyssey. And the Imagination Station was
Yeah.
essentially the Adventures in Odyssey version of a holodeck, because it could supposedly take you back in time to a different time period where Jesus was alive or biblical characters were alive, and you could interact with them firsthand.
You're getting a version of this with these like meta worlds.
Yeah.
You know, you
Yeah,
put
that's true.
these headsets on, and you know, people, you know, I've read stories about people, and really it's just stories about people, and it's to me, it feels like such a weird way to live. That like you go to your 9 to 5, and you come home and you spend every waking moment that you're not at work,
Yeah.
you know, strapped into this headset where you're living this fake life. And you know, and I get for you know, not everybody life is perfect and grand, but it feels like such a weird way to live, to want to subject yourself to this fake world. I think about the Matrix. You know, you're plugged into the
Mhm.
simulation, and you had um, I can't remember the guy's real name, but or even the character's name, but you know, he was basically sabotaging the mission uh, to basically permanently get plugged into the Matrix and not have to live this, you know, known real life now. And
Yeah.
um, you know, it to me just feels so foreign and weird, um, to want to have this hologram lifestyle. Like you said, to do something like that where you're experiencing something really kind of cool. But I feel like it would, I can't imagine the kind of nefarious acts it could be used for.
Right.
Something like that. And so for me, that's one of those things where I really hope that it never comes to fruition, um, because I think that it
Hmm.
would be used for negative things, whether it be you know uh, you know uh, interrogations or whatever. It's something like that, which would be probably would be it'd be used by the government first and foremost. I mean, it
Yeah.
would absolutely
Yeah.
be used by them first.
Well,
Um,
it's funny that you mentioned because even inside the Star Trek IP, they had, several instances of the use of that super ultra futuristic and, ultimately unattainable technology for nefarious purposes. One example was they had one of the I can't remember, I think it was Insurrection, Star Trek Insurrection. They have this grand ploy. There's this people that are living on this planet, and this particular planet has some sort of mineral ore in its core or throughout the planet that keeps these people very young and living very long lives. Like several of these people are several thousand years old, but they look like they're in their 20s and 30s. And so they have gone in the Star Trek, the Starfleet government essentially has gone in and set up a base and disguised the base using hologram technology. And they're using suits that use hologram technology to make themselves invisible so they can walk among these people and learn. They're doing it in this kind of like under the auspices of like that we're going to learn. We're discovering, we're learning, we're not interacting, we're just learning. And they
mhm.
go in and they learn or whatever. And but then there's this subplot happening in the background. Plot what's the word I'm looking for? Spoilers if you haven't watched the movie. It's good. It's a good movie. It's very interesting, very brainy. I like it. But there's this subplot happening in the background that there's people, there's another race of people that are not necessarily affiliated with the Federation that are in partnership with the Federation to study this world. And this race of people is essentially working behind the scenes. They have created an entire ship that is disguised using holographic technology to be invisible. And it is an entire ship that is probably, I don't know, 50,000 square meters of open space holodeck, and that they have meticulously crafted to look like the primary settlement of this indigenous people on this planet. And their intention is to mass transport them while they're asleep into this duplicate place where this duplicate ship that's duplicated their settlement, and then take them off planet to a different planet, and then mine the planet for this mineral that keeps them young. And it's this whole nefarious plot to use this techno, and it's exactly what you just said, to use this almost godlike technology to manipulate people in ways that should never be acceptable. And I think you're probably right. It's probably good that we don't have that technology and that it can never happen.
Right. Right.
Because if it were possible and it were available, it would be used and abused in that kind of fashion. So, probably right. So, and then the second piece of technology, I think that we both were sold as children, as young adults, as adults, and I think most of our audience would agree that is, I think, a fairly ridiculous that we don't have this yet, and I think we're all upset about it. Is the existence of hoverboards? I mean, freaking
Yeah. Well, maybe. I used to skateboard, but I wasn't what you would call good at it,
yeah,
or even mediocre. But I wanted to skateboard so bad because of that was back in the days of the X Games and how popular those were, and like it was
hmm
so cool to see like Buggy Larson do all these tricks. I'm like, I want to be Tony Hawk or whatever,
right.
um, and then I tried to skateboard, and no, I just it wasn't for me.
Yeah, I was just this side of what we would call abysmal when it comes to skateboarding. I remember one time I was skateboarding at a local skate park. This was my first time ever skateboarding at a skate park, and I was too afraid most of the time to go anywhere except just skate around on the flat surfaces because it was just the slopes, and it takes a lot of guts to do stuff like that. And I give high honor to people like Tony Hawk and others that have turned it into something so fantastic to watch, to be a part of, whatever. But anyway, I dabbled in skateboarding, and I remember one time we were at the skate park. If my brother's listening, you'll remember this story. Um, I decided I was going to go down a 4-foot vert ramp for the first time. Had a great skateboard, had my skate shoes on, had my sweat bands on my wrists and on my forehead. I was looking the part. It's looking fly. I got my board over to the vert ramp, and if you're aware of how a vert ramp works, it's a hard drop, and you just kind of rest the back tail of your board and then the truck with the wheels right against the edge, and then you just kind of have to lean forward and drop. Well, I was not prepared for how far forward I would need to lean. And so I got about halfway down and my back foot came off that board, hit the ramp, and then my rubber soled shoes gripped real hard and stopped my back foot, but my front foot was still on the board. And as you can imagine, my feet started doing this, and ow, that hurt my wrist. I'm getting old. My feet just go whoop, and I did forward splits, and I pounded so hard my right knee into the concrete that I swear I had to have broken something. I never got it checked out because I'm
Oh,
reckless,
yeah.
but
No.
I felt like I had to have at least just obliterated my knee because I pounded it so hard into that concrete. It hit so hard that it like this just the pressure and the friction literally wore a hole in the knee of my brand new jeans, Union Bay jeans, and there was
Good
blood.
stuff. Good stuff.
Yeah.
What was your go-to skate shoe brand?
I like DC.
Attaboy.
I
The
loved
DC guy.
Vans. I loved Vans.
It- I can't believe that we wore shoes like that bulky and thick. They were huge. Think about how big those things were. These were like
Yeah, the tongue of
ridiculous.
the shoe was like an inch and a
Yeah.
half thick. It was
Yeah,
crazy.
and you had to, of course, you got to cut the side of your jeans a little bit to make sure they go all the way over your shoe.
Yeah, yeah.
I
I
always
had
wanted jean
a
code jeans. My mom would never buy me jean code jeans because they had flames on them. She thought that was of the devil. So I didn't
yeah.
wear jean
I
code
never
jeans.
wanted Jinko.
Oh, you're a
But
loser.
I did have there was a brand called like 88 or something like that. It was like a really, really expensive brand from California that I had they weren't from California probably, but I had a cousin that was rich enough to own a pair, and he gave them to me, and they were about a size and a half too small, but I
Perfect. They're the best.
squeezed into
They're
those
the-
so
Yeah.
hard, and they were the real baggy,
Yeah.
kinda like Jinko, but not without all the embroidery on the back.
I still contend that J.C. Penney with their Arizona jeans were legit. They were
Yeah,
legit, man.
they still are. They still are. In fact, I think the jeans that I wear are Arizona.
I don't even know where the closest J.C. Penney to me is at. So,
I don't buy them from JCPenney. Yeah, sure enough, Arizona,
oh boy.
but I don't buy them from JCPenney. I get them from,
Arizona?
Amazon.
Oh, cool. Same thing.
I buy them from Arizona direct.
So hoverboards, those were, and I liked the idea of that because they were almost like self-balancing, which would have been nice.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
Marty McFly lied,
Yep.
which
I've
is a
seen
weird.
like I've seen an ungodly number of like YouTube engineers, which is a whole different topic all on its own, the idea of a YouTube engineer. But anyway, I've seen a whole slew of YouTube engineers that have tried and failed to create this technology. And I've seen some that have gotten pretty dang close.
Mm-hmm.
I saw one time that they had a functioning hoverboard, but it would only work inside the parameters of a specific space. The only way that people think that this can work uh, is essentially through magnets and the
Yeah,
repellent
you'd have to.
forces of magnets.
I
Logically,
don't
that
think. I don't
makes
think
sense.
that. Yeah, because I don't think that you could have something with enough power built into it to be able to support any kind of weight.
Right. So the idea is, in order for a magnet repelling technology to work, it's got to be super powerful, like neodymium magnets or even electromagnets that you increase power to them, and it increases the force of push or pull or so
Right.
or whatever.
Right.
But the only way that it works is you have to have a surface that is magnetic, i.e., like a steel plate. And so the only way that anybody's ever been able to get, a functional, if you want to call it that, hoverboard is to create an entire room that's got a solid steel plate floor, and then to have basically a a hoverboard that is electromagnetic fed and that is powered, because the amount of power you have to generate the magnetic field to push to repel 180, 200, whatever pounds of person
Mhm.
on top of the board and its weight. It's extremely high amounts of power. And so you have to have it, like, I think you had to have it tethered to a backpack that you had
Probably,
to
yeah.
wear. And, it's cool. And it would be cool if they could get to the point where it could be what we saw in the movies someday. But until they create the technology that we saw in movies like Independence Day, Resurgence, repulsor technology that doesn't have to obey by the laws of gravity, or that can somehow invert gravity or whatever, which is ridiculous. I don't think we're ever going to get there.
Why was that movie so bad?
I actually liked it, but I also am a garbage human, and it doesn't take a lot
So
to please
so
me.
I wanted to love it. And that makes me scared about Bad Boys 5 or whatever coming out. It's like, please just don't be awful. Don't be
Yeah.
awful. That's it. That's my rule. Don't be awful. Don't be
You know,
terrible.
we talked about this last week about sequels and Hollywood's
Mhm.
undying need for more of the same, or a reboot of the same old thing.
Mhm.
But I do have to say this, and this is way off topic, but I need to put it out there because it's been hitting me right here, right in the heart. We talked a few weeks ago about uh, the Roadhouse reboot with Jake Gyllenhaal,
We did.
and our hopes, or the lack thereof, for that movie and its quality. And I will tell you, I have watched it. It is out. I have watched it, and it is awesome.
Is it good?
It is awesome.
You weren't the first person to tell me that it was good. I'd heard that twice now, that
So
it
there's a
was better than expected.
there's a couple of things that make it good, in my opinion. There have been other people who have had other opinions about why it's so good, but there's a couple things that really, three things that really stand out to me that make it so good. The first thing is that Jake Gyllenhaal is just so likable.
Yeah, I
He's a
like it.
great he's a great actor.
He's a great actor.
He seems like a great guy, and I've rarely seen a movie that had him in it that I
Mhm.
either couldn't watch because it was just so bad, or that I just didn't like his character
Right.
reason. Now, I haven't seen every movie he's been in, but like Nightcrawler or whatever that movie was, I
Oh,
haven't
so
seen
good.
that,
So
and I
good.
haven't seen Brokeback Mountain for plenty of reasons.
Only
But Jake Gyllenhaal overall, to see him go from Donnie Darko to what he is in this it's awesome, and I like
you've seen
Jake Gyllenhaal.
Prisoners, right? You've seen Prisoners, right?
I haven't.
Oh, that's a Jake Gyllenhaal movie you need to check out, like,
Okay,
real soon. That's a good one.
I'll look into it. The second thing is, uh, the one thing that they did in the original that I just didn't like. I mean, carnally, sinfully, I did, but I did but like as a God-fearing, trying to be a good man and a good husband and father, that I just couldn't get behind was the nudity and the
Right.
sexuality of the original, and it was pretty extreme,
It was racy.
pretty racy. Not
Another
as
that's another movie that I saw
yeah,
at a far too young of an age.
hard
Thank you,
same.
Dad.
Right, right. And that was another thing that they did here that I think they did right. They really pared that part down. There was a love interest, and the only thing that it ever amounted to was a kiss on the beach. So it's a movie that I went into it pretty much blind. Allison and I watched it together, and I went into it pretty much blind. To that kind of like I knew it was going to be violent, I knew it was going to be bloody, but I also knew it was going to be funny, and I also knew the source material, and I knew that it had some racy content. So I went into it blind, thinking, okay, I got my finger on the trigger. I'm going to push the skip forward button in case it gets to whatever, and it never did. It
That's
got
good.
one place that I thought, okay, if it's going to get sexual, it's going to do it right here, and it never happened. So I was appreciative of that. And the third thing that they did with this version that I thought was amazing was the fights. Just every single punch hit so hard. Like you could feel it. Like we were sitting there watching it together, and we don't watch movies together terribly often because she's not always in the mood for movies, and I love them. But
Right.
when we do watch a movie, most of the time I've seen it. So it's not very often. It's even rarer still that we watch a movie that neither of us have seen.
Right.
And so we're sitting there watching it, and we're just like cringing at how hard some of these hits are happening. And it was fun. It was
Right.
really, really fun. It was funny when it needed to be funny. It was brutal when it needed to be brutal. And it never crossed a line that I felt uncomfortable with my wife in the room with me, which I appreciated.
Yeah.
Anyway, just a quick PSA about that because I enjoyed that.
Well, I'm glad. Now I've got people telling me I'll watch it. I'll have to
You
watch it.
should. I mean, it's not gonna hurt. It's not gonna cost you anything to go watch it. So,
Right.
you know, so there were the three things, the three technologies. So we talked about flying cars. No, we talked about hologram technology. We talked about
Holograms, hoverboards.
hoverboards. And what was the third one I
You
had?
had one last one that you were going to mention.
Oh, yes, 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 yes. Okay, okay. And I think you would agree with this one wholeheartedly that they should have been able to come up with this by now, and that it should be mass produced, not mass produced for all of us. And that is laser technology instead of razor technology
Oh,
when it comes to shaving.
as someone that hates shaving, and so David, so my shaving routine is getting out of hand. I'm a single blade safety razor guy because more than like one blade on my face gets irritated. So I use a certain kind of razor blade, and it just takes time. Because
Yeah,
you got to get the oil on, so that way you get a good smooth shave. You got to use good cream. You got to get your little dish out and get it all lathered up, and it's a nightmare. It's an
it
absolute
is.
process, and it's kind of annoying, honestly. If I Now you can do electrolysis, which I've always thought about. I'm like, I wonder how much it would cost to do that on my entire face because I hate shaving. We've discussed it. I
Like
hate to
laser
shave.
hair removal on your
Yeah,
face.
yeah. Like I hate shaving. It is the most asinine thing in the entire world. I
Yeah,
think it's dumb.
yeah.
Maybe the Amish got that part right. Um, but I
I would
hate
agree.
shaving. I hate shaving. And so yes, any chance that I would have to have a laser do it for me and it's nice and clean and smooth, there's no nicks, man, I get done shaving and because you're using an incredibly sharp razor blade with these safety razors, and I get done shaving and even going smooth and going carefully, I still get nicks here and there. And those blades cut a bit deeper than your Harry's razors do.
Mhm.
And it looks like somebody murdered a small child in the bathroom. It's
Yep,
terrible.
yep.
There's blood everywhere.
So there's a movie that has Ben Foster and Dennis Quaid in it called Pandorum. Have you ever heard of it?
No.
It is so freaking good. Okay, let me give you the premise, and then I'll explain why I'm bringing this up. It's essentially a spaceship that's flying a whole colonies worth of people, several tens of thousands of people, to a new planet, in an age of space exploration, or maybe it's in a time of Earth being uninhabitable, or one of those tropes. Anyway, so you're on this ship, and this guy wakes up. He's part of one of the flight crews. They have a rotational flight crew for this long journey, and he's part of one of the flight crews. He wakes up and he's alone. All of his other crew members are dead, and he can't figure out what's going on. And basically, without ruining it for you, the gist of the movie is, if you are alone in space too long, or if you're in hibernation in space for too long, some kind of pairing of the two of those, you develop a space sickness called pandorum that makes you go insane. And
Probably.
yeah, and essentially, this guy finds out that there's an entire sector of the ship that had been woken up prematurely and has turned into, essentially evolved into, over time, into a totally new race of cannibalistic, mentally unstable maniacs that are in the ship, and he's got to find a way to navigate through them to get to safety or whatever, in some form or fashion. And they all suffer from this disease. Um, the reason I bring this whole movie up, though, first of all, you need to watch it because it's intense. It's super, super engaging. It's great.
I
But
will.
but the reason that I bring it all up is because Ben Foster's the main character. When he wakes up out of hypersleep, he goes to a locker, but opens it up. There's a mirror on the inside. He grabs a little doohickey that's about the size of a razor handle, and he clicks it on, and there's a tiny little green beam that goes across, and he runs it down his face, and he goes from full beard to clean shaven, lickety split, no nicks,
Please.
no creams,
Please.
no problems.
I
Why
want
in the
that.
actual heck do we not have this
I
technology?
want that in a bad way. In a real
Why are
bad
we
way.
here's the thing that irritates me. Why are we focusing so much on freaking hoverboards, flying cars, holograms, all of this flashy garbage that's impossible, or at least very impractical or improbable, when we could be focusing on laser technology to solve all the world's
Yeah.
shaving problems?
Yeah. It's true. It's true.
We could
I agree.
shave the world together.
See, we're gonna come. That'll be our slogan. We're here to shave the world. That
We
can
are
be our
here to
perfect
shave.
slogan.
Yes.
I love it.
Oh my gosh. I don't know, man. It's just been one of those things where it's like, we grew up in the 90s and early 2000s, and there's so many cool movies and cool predictions of future technology, and
Never got
how
them.
many of them have
Never got them.
ever come true? Any of the good ones, at least.
Yeah, not the good ones. The dystopian ones. Some of those came true, but that's
Yeah,
about
right.
it. Yeah, it's a shame. But also, I've always felt like some of the technology was always a little bit playing God.
Yeah, that's
Some
true.
of it, modifying DNA, like Gattaca, modifying your DNA,
That's
stuff
a
like
good
that.
movie
So,
too.
that was those things always like freaked me out a little bit. But yeah, some of the nice things would be great. I would love to have a robot butler.
Here's a good practical technology that I think it would be expensive, but I think it would be totally doable. One of the things here where I live that we hear a lot publicly is complaints about the conditions of the roadways, right? And that's probably, I wouldn't imagine any of our listeners, no matter where you live, unless maybe you're outside of the country somewhere where everything's perfect. And if you are, please let us know so we can move there. But anyway, I don't think any of us are deceived into thinking that this is a problem that only we have individually. That's a problem everywhere. Roads suck collectively. And so here's a situation that I was thinking about this the other day. Actually, earlier today, I was out running some errands today, and there were several cars wide cars parked along the sides of a street that wasn't wide enough to accommodate 2 lanes of traffic, and cars parked on the side of the street. And so as I'm driving, I'm having to merge into the oncoming lane to get around these other vehicles, and vice versa on my way back. And I'm thinking to myself, how great would it be if we had smart roadways, like uh if the actual like road surface was a smart technology that could somehow shift the lane lines in response to things or activities on the roadway. So if somebody's parked on the roadway because they have a construction thing, the road lines could automatically divert traffic around that without having to make people create their own lanes to avoid those obstacles. You know, now I know that we have technology that's supposed to be like avoiding water puddling on asphalt or whatever. It's something super porous or something that just the water just passes right
Yeah,
through the blacktop
yeah,
or
it's in
something.
like I think they got it. They've got it like China, I think.
Yeah. And
It's
then
really interesting.
I know that we have things like e-ink, electronic
Mhm.
ink that can shift and create images on a non projected surface, like a non LED or projected surface. And I think those things are cool. And I think that would be
Mhm.
something maybe that could be technology we could possibly apply to smart road surfaces that could shift lane lines around obstacles, that you could program. Say for example, you've got an interstate that's a 3-lane highway, but you've got these crazy parking or emergency shoulders on either side, that, say for example you have a traffic accident at some point that causes a blockage in the traffic flow. Instead of having to have police and fire divert traffic and condense and bottleneck down to a single lane, you could just type it into your computer and have it automatically adjust the traffic around the accident. Or even better yet, or in line with that, you could have the surface of the road open a special lane that's colored specifically so that
Mhm.
it's not accessible to anybody but emergency
Yeah,
personnel. And then you don't have to worry about people being courteous to move over or out of the way for ambulances and police and fire. And you would just create a special lane just for them
it's true.
and keep traffic flowing. Like
Yeah.
that's a super interesting and easy way. And if you didn't want the actual road surface to do it, you could bake it in to some sort of technology that's
Well,
some
you've
kind of
already
heads up display
you've
in the
got
vehicle.
I mean, you have Apple Maps that's really nice. Like if you're traveling, it'll say, "Hey, there's been an accident ahead," or whatever.
Yeah.
The fastest way is to go this way around it, which that's always
Well, the
nice.
the alerts are nice, but having an actual analog experience with shifted lanes, we've all driven through construction zones that have to divert lanes over out of the way of
Mhm.
construction, whether it be, tearing out and rebuilding a bridge or, whatever the case may be. And but imagine that being able to happen in real time without
True.
having to have road crews go out and set out cones and paint special new lines.
Yeah,
Like
that'd be cool.
that'd be awesome. That's totally not necessarily practical, because you'd have to basically find some universal surface technology that you could apply to every surface in the entire country. But you could start small rollouts like they did with
Right.
5G signal, cell phone signal. Start in some metropolitan areas or even start in some smaller cities and deploy the technology there, see how it works in a smaller setting,
Yeah.
and stage it and tier it up to bigger communities until you get to something Chicago-esque, and then you could see how it works in a larger capacity, and then roll it out, countrywide or statewide or whatever. I think that would be super cool.
Be interesting. I'd be
Yeah,
for it.
I'd be totally on board with that. And then here's another addendum to that technology. Then with smart roadways, smart road surfaces, you could find a way to transmit that information through tires that pair to vehicles. And then your information could be transmitted through the road surface into the vehicle and back and forth, so that you could have communication to the car itself. That could
Mhm.
help with lane keeping, that could help with autopilot functions.
Yeah.
It can help with tons of stuff. And then at that point, which this may be a little bit too far, but then you could mandate or have some sort of technological mandate that when there is a traffic accident or something, or if there is a specific construction zone that's active, they have these signs that go out there and they say, speed limit, whatever, 45 miles an hour, photo enforced, which it never is. It's just a bunch of malarkey. But they have these signs out there that tell you how fast you're going and how fast you should be going, and that if you're breaking that rule, you're going to be penalized for it. Well, instead of relying on an honor system or a bait and switch kind of system to get people to follow those rules, you could just have it programmed into the roadway that it doesn't allow the vehicles to exceed the mile per hour limit.
Yeah.
Problem solved.
Yeah, I mean, I'm for that. I think the problem there then is you've got more government intrusion, but that's more of a me problem than anything else.
Well, that's I think where it goes a little bit too far, because then you're giving government control over your travel, and no, I don't think there'll be a lot of people that'll be comfortable with that. But
No.
I like the idea of the technology.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I think I do. I think I do. I think that there could be some benefits there in some regard.
yeah.
So as we close, David, what are you excited about? Give me 2 things that you're excited about.
That's a good question, because within the confines of what we're talking about, I'm
Oh, shoot.
excited
Is that
about.
what it is? Because I have 2 things I'm excited about that aren't in the confines of what we're talking about. Well, one kind of is, but one probably not really. But go ahead.
I'll give my 2 things. One of them is in the confines of what we're talking about. The other one, not so much. So the first one, the one that's dealing with our topic for this episode, I'm pretty pumped about this new CarPlay functionality that Apple's rolling out with their new iOS. It's
Wait.
already available in some vehicles. CarPlay 2.0, I think is what they're calling it.
Ooh.
And if you haven't heard of this, viewer, listener, Austin, I would look it up. It's pretty cool. They talked a bit about it, not a ton, but they talked a bit about it at their last WWDC when they announced the iPhone 15s. Or maybe it was in the last iOS. It was in the last iOS DC back in June of last year. So go back, check that out. CarPlay 2.0.
Oh, where it's like where it takes over all of your screens.
It takes over all of your screens,
Yeah.
gives you more control of what kind of data you see, gives you control to manipulate your own gauge clusters and see the data in a cleaner and more appealing way. I'm really excited about the idea of it. Even if it only allows, because here's the thing, I don't have a vehicle, neither of our cars have multiple screens that are even touchable by connected devices, right? We have 2 screens in our Jeep. Only one of them can be accessed by a connected device. I not only have 1 screen in my pickup truck, and I installed it myself, and it's a big 13-inch diagonal touchscreen what's the word I'm looking for? Tesla style kind of radio head unit, which I love. I think it's super freaking cool. But the only downside, there's 2 downsides. The first one is I don't think it's going to be accessible on any vehicles other than specifically designed head units in models of cars 2024 and beyond. So unfortunately, I'm at least to my knowledge, anybody that has a vehicle that's older than 2024, which is basically everybody, won't be able to access these features from this new CarPlay at all, which stinks. But there is hope. I would hope that at some point in the future, they enable certain features to be accessible on other vehicles. Like, for example, my truck, I've got this 13-inch diagonal vertical touchscreen on my dash, and it looks amazing, and CarPlay fills the entire thing. But my radio head unit also does pull data, at least 2 pieces of data, from my actual vehicle computer system. 2 pieces of data, specifically RPMs and mile per hour speedometer. It gets at least those 2 pieces of data from my car's computer system. And it would be wonderful if Apple could find a way to implement this CarPlay 2.0 to be usable on older vehicles as well, and just be able to access whatever information is available through the car's computer unit as it's connected to the head unit. That way I could replace the stupid little one of the widgets on the home screen version the multi-screen version with a speedometer.
Right.
Like, that would be so much more useful to me than whatever the crap is on there now. So that's the first
I
one.
agree.
I'm pretty pumped about that. I like the idea of it. Will they employ that in something for more kind of retroactively for older vehicles? Probably not.
Why not?
But it still is cool, and I would love to get to see that in play in newer vehicles. Go, as soon as it's available, find a vehicle that it's available in at a rental place and go rent one just to see what it's like. That
Yeah.
kind of. The second thing is, I'm excited because I'm gonna be a dad. I
It's the
mean,
best feeling.
I don't think there's anything better in my life right now than the knowledge that, I've got a great woman, a great God, and I got a baby on the way, and I'm
Yeah.
super pumped about that.
We've talked about it. I'm super excited for you. I'll tell you from my standing that there's nothing that I enjoy more than being a father. It's the greatest feeling in the world. I got two girls, and it's the greatest feeling in the world. Getting home and they're excited to see you. It makes life perfect.
Yeah.
So I'm excited for you and Allison. You guys are going to do great with that. I'm excited about two things. One, I just finished a game. So I don't get to play games very often because, family, work, etc. But I started playing this game called Control. It just came to Xbox Game Pass, and I'd heard good things, as I gave it a shot. And I got so sucked into this stinking game, like I couldn't put it down. It's legitimately one of the best games I've played in a long time. So if you're a gamer and you've not played Control, I highly recommend it. It's a lot of fun. It's kind of like I don't even know how to describe it. It's just kind of like a it's fun. It's fun. The other thing I'm excited about, and we're recording this on a Monday night. It's currently Monday for Friday consumption because Thursday night I told David today. I said, hey. I said Illinois is playing in the Sweet 16 Thursday night. So I will not be available because Illinois basketball is one of the things that I love most in this world. If you are a college basketball fan, I encourage you to root for the Illini, their first Sweet 16 since 2005. And that my hope is that they play at least one more game this year. So that's what
19 years.
19-year drought. So it'd be a fun game. Good offense versus good defense. It'd be a lot of fun.
That's especially meaningful for you because you've been a sports writer for them for a long time. You've almost never had anything good to write about.
No, and now that I no longer write, now they're good again. So
maybe you were the problem. Maybe you were
I was probably the problem.
The thorn in their side or whatever.
That's probably accurate. I wouldn't doubt that for a second because football and basketball got better when I quit writing. So
yeah,
I get it.
That's typically how it goes. As soon as you step away, good things
Yeah.
happen.
So. But this has been a fun episode. We talked about future things that we never got, future things that we want to get, and I think for me, I just hope that as technology advances, number one, we avoid annihilation. That's my goal.
Yes.
I'd like to avoid that. But number two, my only hope for technology is that it's ethical. I think that when you think about technology changing in the future, it always feels so unethical because it always just kind of feel like it goes too far. I'm all for the flying cars or whatever, but I'm not for other things. So I think that's probably what I'm most excited about is as technology advances. And I think in my lifetime how technology has advanced. I remember being a kid playing games on the PS1, thinking like, there's no way that anything will ever look this good. This is incredible. Thinking about movies, how movies got so crystal clear now. How we went from needing a calculator and a calendar and a black book and a crossword puzzle and a newspaper, and we replaced them all with these things, in our pockets. So, I think that technology, even phone technology has advanced so much over the past, 5 years. The need to carry a camera anymore is becoming non-existent because these phones are getting so advanced technologically.
Yeah.
So I think that's what excites me is that I'm fine just seeing what we have today continue to get better and better and better.
Yeah, I would agree. And I would think that as a final statement for this episode, that we can speak to all of our future inventors out there and technological advancers and just say, please don't do anything stupid.
Please. That's number one. Just don't do anything stupid. Just
Don't be so smart that you're dumb.
be ethical. You love Jurassic Park. We don't need to clone dinosaurs, okay?
We don't.
There's no need.
Yes.
There's no need.
No.
Okay. They're
There's no
fine.
need for that.
They're fine in the Paleolithic era. They're not fine today. Okay. You can't tame those bad boys. They're mean.
Yeah. All of our future John Hammonds out there, please don't.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
Well, I think that's all we have time for tonight. So Austin, we'll just see what the future holds. One way or another, technology will either make us or break us.
As an elder emo, the words of Motion City soundtrack ring true. The future freaks me out.
All right, we'll see you guys next time.
Goodbye.
Good night.
Goodbye.